welcome back. It's the KDJ channel, the HowToKDJ podcast. Here's a thought, right? Why do not... Oh, God, that's the worst way to start a sentence properly. Why don't schools teach the internet use more? Like, why don't we teach how to use the internet more? This is like I don't want to be too subjective about this. I feel like this is extremely important. Like not one of those things where I'm like, yeah, they should have taught us to use our taxes or say to use taxes. What the hell am I saying? They should have taught us to file taxes, or they should have taught us to understand how to buy houses, how to understand the market. And no, this is really important. Why don't schools teach students how to use the internet, right? And please try to understand what I mean when I say internet, how to use the internet in general. Where I'm coming from is basically Google, right? How to use Google or how to use Yahoo, whatever search engine you prefer. For example, Google, right? Why don't we teach kids how to use Google? You know, because it's very important. And this is not me being a parent in the PTA class saying, why don't we teach kids how to? No. Like I'm not trying to be a brat about this. This is really important because I have three reasons for this that I came up with, and I was like, let me make a video about this. First of all, job finding nowadays, especially nowadays, because we're not in the 1990s anymore. Nowadays, we need to have a way to search for jobs properly, and the best way to do this is through the internet. It's to apply for jobs online. You know, job postings, job listings. For example, Indeed.com. You know, it's a popular way we find jobs. So it's like, okay, cool. To find a job, you go on the internet. Why don't they teach us how to do this? Because this is one of those little skills that I feel like get people in trouble the most, and at the same time can make or break their entire life. Why don't they teach this in schools? Like, why wouldn't you teach a student how to use a dictionary, for example? You want to find words, you teach a child to use a dictionary. Why don't we teach children how to find answers? The entire internet is pretty much a dictionary of everything. I'm sure someone has come up with that term before. This is not anything new. Yes, it is. It's literally a dictionary of everything. So why is this not like a common thing? Why don't we have like a class called Internet 101? How to use a search engine, how to use this, how to display this, how to understand what you're looking for, how to know when a website is a good website or a bad website, how to understand these little things. Because I feel like the only reason this isn't being taught is because there's a huge market of people who make a living based on the fact that other people don't know how to use the internet. And that's 100% true. I'm going to be perfectly honest. Even as a video editor, as my job, a lot of the time I realize one of the reasons a lot of people don't know how to edit is not because they can't use the apps well, like the software well, is because they don't know how to search for things. Because when you can search for assets or search for pictures or search for pretty much anything that could help with whatever you're doing, for example, in my terms, video editing, it really freaking helps. Okay, it really does. And this is a common thing. This is something I have genuinely noticed a lot of people do not understand, and that really bugs me. Because imagine do you know how many friends I have that are like, okay, I'm done with school now, so how exactly do I go about looking for a job? First of all, you didn't learn that in school. That's a systematic fault. That's a big deal. They don't teach that in school. They just don't teach how to use the internet. They don't teach how to look for jobs. Like, come on. It's like, I feel like this is so obvious, you know? It's one of those things that it's genuinely obvious. So it's really, really boggling my mind that we just don't learn this. So imagine like having a friend, he finishes school and he's like, okay, I need to get a job, okay? Like I need to start making a living. I'm going to be kicked out of my house very soon. My parents will stop paying. So how do I get a job? And they're like, okay, so technically you should apply through the school. You know, that's usually the common thing, that okay, the school will help you apply and stuff. Really? Really? that barely ever happens, okay? That barely happens. That only happens for people who are like excelling at their grades. People that are very, very excellent in school. People that had high GPAs and stuff, and only couple of those people too, because there's a lot of people who have high GPAs. A lot of people like think, oh, I got a 3.5 or something. I got a decent GPA, so I should get something great. Does not exactly work that way, and that's a bit of a problem, because how do you now find a job if you're like a 3.0 GPA or like a 2.5? How do you find a job? For those of you who don't understand, the GPA rating is 1 to 4, so maximum is 4. I think. I don't really know, because I didn't finish university. It's kind of funny. Yeah, that's another funny story I'll talk about very soon. But like, how do people get, like, how do you go through an entire studying, like an academy, everything, and not understand the basic thing that is the internet? Because it sounds basic to me. Obviously, I'm privileged enough to say it's basic because I got to use it my entire life. But come on, like, just come on. It's so annoying. And this is the reason I keep saying school, and I keep blaming the school, because it's not your fault if you didn't learn something. That's kind of part of what makes life. It's experiences. A lot of people's experiences growing up is that they got to handle computers very early, So they got to use computers, they got to use like different kinds of software, and they're like, oh, that's pretty cool. And then they got to branch up and down using the internet, using search engines, using, I don't know, Ask Jeeves or something. They used like older computer systems. I don't know why I keep referencing old things. I'm 22 years old. I don't know why I'm referencing things that didn't exist when I was born. Whatever. It's not like Ask Jeeves didn't exist when I was born. It was born 2001. But like, yes, all these things exist, and some people have their experiences, and they do end up finding these things early, which is just kind of, that's the draw of life. You could literally find anything and be lucky enough that you found the right thing, early in life. And that always helps when you do find it, because then you're special, apparently. But the thing is, we could just teach these things in schools. Like, we could. But at the same time, one of the conspiracies I was going to go into in this video, one of the reasons I brought up this topic, which is like kind of the whole point of this, is I feel like this is deliberate. All right? Sooner or later, obviously, this is one of those things is bound to get into classes, is bound to find its way into the academic system. But one of the things I always say is this is deliberate. Why do I think it's deliberate? Because think about it like this. If you were going to get a job online, right? And if you understood how searching and all these internet algorithms work, 3 things would happen. Number 1, you would be able to curate good from bad very easily, right? That's a big issue. Why is that a big issue? Because if you wanted to get like a decent, I don't know, like a very decent school, you wanted to go to a very decent school, and your parents, for example, were taught the internet, and they understood how these things work, and as soon as we got access to the World Wide Web and stuff, like years ago, they were able to search online, find curations, find the right things, and understand the right schools. Then a lot of different school districts would just never work. Schools would have to really work so hard and invest so much money to make their schools the top of the best, like the best of the best, so that people can actually find those schools appealing enough and put their kids there. Because you wouldn't want to keep your kid in a school where people online, different websites have already rated to be like a mediocre school or a mid school. Think about it. And this is just coming from one perspective. The fact that schools, like you wouldn't have mediocre schools anymore. But then there is also a little draw, which is that if this was just a thing that already happened and everyone was being taught the internet, there is also the fact that the internet itself would become so much more, there's a way to put it, like prime. I don't know how best to put it, but prime. In the sense that it's going to be like a class thing, It would have a lot more barriers than it does have. If people realize how freaking valuable the internet is, service providers, people will provide Wi-Fi. It will be so much more expensive because schools would just realize, hey, why exactly am I paying a professor to come in 9 to 5 to work at a school when I could just, teach the kids how to use the internet, how to surf the web. And if I can teach them that, then what happens? they understand how to do it. And then if they understand how to do it, then they don't need the school anymore. You can see what happens. It kind of destroys the whole aspect of studying. It destroys the whole aspect of everything, because you don't need those things in your life anymore. And that's kind of why I was like, wait, so there is a very high chance that this is completely how things are. It's kind of like the whole argument about how investors don't invest in solar energy, even though technically, I think 2023 or 2022, one of them had it was the first year that more investment was put into solar energy than into petroleum. But technically, those numbers are kind of not as you would imagine, because they were just new investors into solar energy than there were new investors into petroleum. There are still way more investors in petroleum than solar energy. So I don't know. By the way, it's just one of those things. But the same way that happens, and people are like, oh, the reason we don't invest into solar energy is because it would just ruin so many petroleum industries, ruin so many markets. And technically, it's both good and bad, because you can't just immediately invest in something new when people already only have skills for something that's old, something that they only know. Imagine 50% of the world were all like, Sith farmers that used scythes. Scythe is this thing that you see like god of death or something used. Those videos where like the guy with the black shawl, like the entire black gown, who carries this thing that looks like an axe. That's called a scythe. So that's a thing used for farming. So imagine there were people who, like 50% of the world, knew how to use that. And then one guy was like, hey, I can create a machine that can just do all this for you guys, and you don't need to employ people anymore. You can just pay me pretty much a down payment, and here it goes. You can take the machine, and now you can just do all this work automatically. Imagine if someone could do that now, and as he could do that, everyone else in the world, I said everyone else, 50% of the world would just lose their jobs. They would just not have anything else to do. And that's kind of the good and bad side of this whole thing, is the fact that it's tough to do this, because how do you move on? Like, how do you have to like restructure the society for these things to be implemented, which is the reason I feel the internet is not being taught. Because it's like a dictionary, like I said. It's a dictionary of everything. Everyone puts everything on the internet because it's so much easier than it seems. And because it's easy, schools will be afraid of it. Companies will be afraid of it. Now let's get into companies, because I just talked a bit about schools. For companies, imagine if you could just go online and everyone understood how the internet works, and everyone could find exactly the best jobs and the best elements and the best ways to apply for jobs. Then the competition would be just too high. They would definitely, because that's the thing about human beings, we find a way through anything, through thick and thin. We went through the Industrial Revolution. We went through a lot of things. We found a way through it. Yes, people would probably find a way to go around the whole thing and understand how everything works, but it's still really difficult. And why is it so difficult? Because you're talking about changing an entire lifestyle. You're changing everything about people's lives, in the sense that now people can just find anything they need. They can just be like, I'm looking for I'm looking for a job with this particular benefits, with this thing, with that thing, and they search hard enough, they will find it, because there are just that many things in the world. And that's the problem, because a lot of the reasons a lot of companies work and they are able to keep themselves afloat is because a lot of people don't know online that there are better companies out there. That's the thing. A lot of the reasons why a company like IKEA, for example, this is just a conjecture, I don't really think this is true, but a company like IKEA is probably not the best furniture company out there, especially not around your neighborhood. But a lot of the reasons, like a lot of families and stuff have IKEA furniture, or even like single old women or something have IKEA furniture, is because they don't really know the internet that well. And I'm not even just saying the ability to know there is something called the World Wide Web, no. The ability to really understand how to use the internet to find what you're looking for. A lot of people don't have that. And that's a big deal, because they don't have that thing. What else do they do? Think about it like that. They don't have the skills. They don't have the internet at their disposal. And because they don't have that, they're like, wait a minute. So this is the best option I can find, and they're like, okay, sure, I'll just take this. I'll just buy IKEA furniture. Imagine they didn't know. Imagine they did know that there were other places because of the internet. Then IKEA would make less money. This is, by the way, again, a conjecture. I don't think IKEA is like the worst furniture or anything. I don't think there are many furniture companies that are much better than IKEA. There probably are, of course. A lot of people would probably agree so, but like I don't know for a fact. So I gotta leave a little bit of like a disclaimer there. But like this is a big thing. How do people not see this? The internet is right there. You know, when people were like, imagine having the connection to the world at the palm of your hand. You literally have that. We have that. The average person in the world right now has the internet, has access to the internet one way or the other. It's kind of reached that point. You know, when it was always like, now technically there are a lot of third world countries that don't have. No, I'm from a third world country, okay? I'm from Nigeria. And we do have it abundantly. We have the internet. Like, we have a lot of it. So it's like, this is not even a problem anymore. It's just kind of how people think. It's all about like, now, what do you want? Like, what do you prefer? That's kind of how the internet is now. So I don't know. It's just, it's crazy to think about because this is a big deal. Okay. This is a really big deal. And it's so hard to comprehend because think about it. It's the internet. So it's kind of new. So it's one of those things that it's still technically a new phase, you know? You know, like how adults see a kid doing something weird and like, you know, back then how parents would see a kid growing up and he's like, the kid has like eyeshadow and everything. It's always all like dark and broody and like it's just a phase. You know that phase thing, that kind of thing. That particular thing is the same when it comes to the internet for some people, for companies, for industries, for schools, because a lot of schools, even till now, they still use old-fashioned, like very, very old academic systems because that's what they know. That's the only thing they can use. And because that's the only thing they know, they keep doing it. And if it works, then why fix what's not broken? That's the problem. You can't say why fix what's not broken when there is clearly a better option. You know, you don't always have to wait till something is broken to fix it. Exactly. Yes. I know I just blew some people's minds. I didn't blow anybody's minds. That's clearly obvious. You don't have to. You don't have to wait. You can just fix the thing. And that's really, really, really a big reason I feel like a lot of people should just try to understand this. Like they really, really need to understand this. And it's crazy. Like, I don't know. It's just, this is all opinionated. This is all just me rambling on. But dude, like people really, really, really need to start, I don't know, boycotting companies and schools for the fact that they don't teach the internet. And please, like, the same way we have to, like, break things down for like, I don't know, politicians to understand what they're doing is bad, or rich people to understand, or for people to understand how they're destroying the world or destroying the planet. That's how these things need to be curated into schools. You can't just go to the school, obviously, and be like, hey, why don't we use the internet in school? Why don't you teach us how to use Google? And then the school goes, yeah, but then people will start watching pornography in school, and you don't start teaching that kind of nonsense. And what about the bad things in the internet? No, that's not the right thought. Think about it. It's not the right thoughts. You can use that argument for anything. Why don't people, think about school, for example. Why do people still go to schools when it's very, very obvious and very clear? It's a big deal in America, especially. There are school shootings. There are mass shootings. There are people who just carry guns to class and they kill everybody. Why would you send your child to school when that kind of thing can happen? Because you know there are still better things you can get from going to school than not going to school. It's still a risk and a chance that you can still take because the benefit outweighs the, what do you call the opposite of benefit? The disadvantage, I guess. Like it outweighs that because it's better to go and get an education and have a little bit of a risk of the fact that you could lose your life, even though it's a very small probability, but like it's still there, than for you to just sit at home and, you know, gather dust pretty much and just be like, oh, I'm safe in my house. People still die at home, you know, that still happens. There are still a lot of things that can happen at home that are just as risky as going to school. A lot of things. But the thing is, when we have to break all these things down, it makes people more paranoid. So they're like, you know what, let's just take what we already know. Let's just follow the system. Let's be sheep. But that's the problem. Schools do that. And that's the reason we have curricula in school that do not make any sense. We have people learning things that they do not need. And look, I've always been one of those contenders that's always like, there's clearly a big reason why we learn some things in school that we don't really need to learn. And I've always been like, okay, fine. My lips are so chapped right now, and I didn't drink like Vaseline. Okay, but whatever. The main reason I've always thought of, like the arguments I've always had in my mind is that, okay, fine. The reason we don't really, how am I gonna put this? The reason we don't learn a lot of these things very early, and the reason we learn a lot of random stuff that we don't need to learn, is just because they're trying to make us heighten our thoughts, like, our minds, because it's technically good when you learn stuff ahead and then you understand how things work, and it helps your brain for logical reasoning. That's what I've always said. There is a big flaw in that, though. There's a limit to that. There's a limit to learning something random just for the sake of, okay, like your brain will be good at learning things, and learning unnecessary things. There's still a gap. There's still a gap there. And that's the problem. It's one, and that's the thing about the brain. People still think that if you learn, because this is still a little bit, it's one of those things that still needs to be researched, I guess, before I bring up like I don't know, my own conjecture. There is like a limit, to where you can learn stuff that it's necessary enough, and limits to where you can learn stuff that you don't even need it at all. Because sometimes the brain actually gets to a point where it's ages enough and it's learned a lot of things that you don't really need more than that, Like learning, for example, in computer studies. Like let's say you were learning, I don't know, machine learning. You're doing like machine programming and stuff, but you were supposed to be learning mechanical engineering, but they're teaching you machine learning. You're like, okay, cool. Yeah, you're trying to understand the general basis of computer learning, and it's good to have all this knowledge and all these skills. Why not just teach the kid what they need to know? Like this is more advanced stuff. If it's like in, when you were in high school and you were learning, I don't know, chemistry, for example, we all did, like all the science students did chemistry, biology, physics. Some people ended up being biochemists. Some people ended up being physicians. Some people ended up being, but some people just ended up being programmers. But they still had to do it because computer science is under science. So they had to do physics, chemistry, and biology. That's technically unnecessary, but at that stage in life, it's fine. But at a stage in life where you're in like university and you're still learning random stuff that you genuinely don't need, that becomes unnecessary learning. That's no longer a thing that you're learning because it helps to sharpen your mind. No, you don't need that at that point. And that's kind of where I'm getting to, that the internet is one of those things you genuinely need. No matter what facet you are in life, you can use the internet to help you in anything, because it's existed for so long that people have put in, like literally, like how you have a dictionary of the English language that's existed for so long that we have so many words for everything. Any feeling, any capability, we have a word for it. A lot of people would disagree that words are just ways we analyze how we feel, blah, blah. We have enough words. Just check. There's a reason where you find words around, like in people that are very linguistic, like that talk about a lot of words, and you're like, wow, that's insane. I didn't even know that word existed. There's thousands of words in the English language that have every freaking form of anything that you can imagine. Any form of thought concept can be and this is just the English language. There are thousands of other languages. So this is just the English language. So think about it. We have these things, but people won't learn them. People are like, we don't need to learn these things, because if we learn these things, then it's kind of unnecessary. That's what schools would say, but it's not. Especially nowadays. Especially now when companies need you to understand how to do SEO. Like by SEO, I mean like social media. There's a way. What's the meaning of SEO again? I've completely forgotten. But it's like to be able to understand how to use social media to calculate analytics. How to understand your analytics based on your socials. I don't know. It's a long thing. But like that whole thing, that's internet based. You don't learn that in school. Why don't we learn it in the school? That's the thing. Imagine we learned that in school. You wouldn't need to have to do this SEO garbage. You wouldn't need to know this. You would just know it from school. It would just be a thing. But at the same time, that's what makes some people more special than the others. And maybe that's the thing about life. Maybe this is my conclusion here. Maybe the way life can be, the only way life can work is that some people know some things and they don't allow some other people to know it. Maybe that whole concept of there's a term people use, a phrase people use when you're not gatekeeping. Yeah, that's a word. Maybe that whole concept of gatekeeping actually needs to happen. Maybe that's the only way a society can work. Because technically, if you don't gatekeep some things, then technically everyone knows everything. And the thing is, the internet is available, but it's still being gatekept in the sense that schools can literally, the same way they teach us science, the same way they teach us all these things, they can teach us the internet, but it's gatekept. Because if we learned all the internet, then we would know everything. That's just how it is. We would know what is right, what's wrong. And if we know what's right and what's wrong, that's a little bit of a problem, isn't it? Because when we know all these things, no one can swindle you. And a lot of companies need people to be swindled to function. And that's the end of my TED Talk again. Because I don't know, I don't want to waste so much time with this, but this is just it's a thought I've been having because I was like, this is so important and people don't know this for some reason. Like, it's so obvious, but at the same time, we don't do it. It's one of those things that is basically hidden in plain sight. We could just add it, Internet 101. Just basic word like that. Or you can use something stupid, some weird coined way of breaking that word down, internet. I don't know. But like you can call it like intercommunication or I don't know, World Wide Web studies. I don't know. You can just call it something, put it in schools because you have to keep everything old fashioned. You can just call it Internet 101. But like have a specific class. You can just start in like, I don't know, secondary school. And obviously, you're not just going to say, hey, there is the internet out there, you guys should go jump in the pool. No, you teach them, you lecture them, you make them understand the good things and the bad things. Because another reason why people get scammed a lot, like scammed very easily, and I know people who do that, and I know people who make a living from just scamming people on the internet, is because some people don't know enough. They don't know what's good from bad. They don't know what a virus is. We were taught that in computer, like in computer studies and stuff. But that's an old-fashioned virus. That's a corruption virus. That's a virus that's just meant to twist around, to like corrupt a service, corrupt a server. That's not really the kind of viruses we have nowadays. The kind of viruses we have now are people rotting your brain with horrible information, with bad knowledge. That's the thing. That's where we are now. So we need to understand these things. We need to learn these things early because it's great when you just know that you can know everything very easily. You want to find a job, you go online, you search the thing up, you know exactly what to type, you know exactly what search terms to use. Yes, the reason I said that this is probably one of those things that you kind of need in a society, the gatekeeping aspect, is because that also leads, because you have to think about things steps ahead. That leads to another situation where everyone now knows exactly how companies manipulate them. And like I said, this is one of those things where it's like, if we change it in the past, that doesn't make the present better, If we're already being taught the internet as soon as it came out, and as soon as World Wide Web was spreading, that doesn't necessarily mean the world will be better now. It could be completely worse. It could be good that people don't know enough, that you don't know how the cookie is being made, you don't know how the pastry is being baked. Because if you do know everything, that could lead to a lot of other issues that I don't know. I don't know if I have enough time in this video to break down all these thoughts I have. But yeah, I can kind of see that happening because you would have, like, companies will have to learn to find a way to stop people from finding deeper information. Like, gatekeeping will be at an all-time high because, like, you would have to gatekeep some things because there's no way you can just have access to everything. Because if you do, then how do you run a society? I kind of made a whole video about this, about why there can't be a sustainable society purely because of things like this. You can't have everyone know everything. Even if the internet is really right there, you can't have people know what the internet is. You can have them have it, but it's like how would I put it? It's like a soft gatekeeping. It's like an ignorance-based gatekeeping. It's not like you're hiding it from them, but you're not showing them, It's like an illusion. It's like magic or something. I don't know. Anyway, this has been fun. There's a lot of thoughts here, and I don't know. I could go on and on and on about this topic because this is a big deal. But I guess this is the best way I can put this. It's like internet gatekeeping, and I feel like I got my points down. I feel like I did a decent job on explaining what I mean in these scenarios. But in case you have any thoughts on this, write down some comments. I always enjoy when I see other insights on topics that I say. all done in makeup. So yeah, this was fun. This was very fun. I hope you guys you guys will see me in the next video. Stay gorgeous, stay beautiful, and as always, get out of here.